Well, it's a nice day out there today. Clear blue sky and sunshine. Last few days have been pretty nasty. Spitting snow. Snow levels down on the hills to where they're just above where we are, and we get a few snowflakes once in a while. Cleared up last night, and then it froze hard overnight. It's a nice day out there today. It's only supposed to last one day. We're supposed to be a big storm coming in on Wednesday night. High wind warning and everything. We'll see what happens. I came in early and turned the lights on and then turned a couple of the infrared heaters on just to kind of take the chill off. But it should be pretty comfortable in here now today because we've got this black tarp over the doors and the sunshine's shining right on it. So it's already warmed up in here. What is it? 50 degrees in here, which is as warm as it's been for a long time. It's still 36 degrees outside. Gonna be comfortable working in here today. I got the engine all stripped down, all disconnected from the airframe and ready to come off of there, except for pulling those 4 bolts for the engine mounts and taking the propeller and the prop spinner off. So it's all but ready to come off of there. But I'm going to do one thing before I take that off, and that's the reason I've left the propeller and spinner on there so far. Well, this is an engine exchange, meaning I have to exchange this engine for the rebuilt one or the remanufactured one, and I have to send this one back as a core. So the core return is supposed to be a serviceable engine, or a complete engine, exactly what they sent me in the box. And it's not supposed to have any damage or anything to it. It should be rebuildable, which this engine is. But I did something to it that I'm going to undo, I think. Last year I replaced the number 1 and number 3 cylinder with brand new cylinders. They're Superior cylinders, meaning they're made by Superior instead of by Lycoming. And so they've got about 200 hours on them. Well, the year before, in the middle of the season, I replaced the number 2 and number 4 cylinders with brand new Lycoming cylinders. So those cylinders have only got, well, they've got 200 hours on this, ones on this side are a little less, and the ones on the other side have around 300 hours on them. So they're good cylinders. They've all got good compression. I've got the other set of cylinders in here in a box. There's nothing wrong with them except that they're worn. They have low compression, but there's nothing physically wrong with them. They can be overhauled or rebuilt. So I'm going to take these cylinders off and save these for spares and put the other cylinders on and ship this engine out with those other cylinders on there. I've taken the rocker box covers off of them and taken the rocker arms out. I got the push rods out, push rod tubes out. And I took the inner cylinder baffles off, so these cylinders are ready to come off there. They're all detached. So there's 4 of these large bolts on here to take off and 4 of the small bolts to take off. Take those off, and then I can just pull the cylinders out, pull the pin out of the pistons, just swap the other cylinders for these. So that's what I'm going to do. Here's the intake tubes here. See, they got a rubber boot on them here, a connector coupling on them here that connects them into the tubes where they come out of the oil sump, and I just drop those down out of the way. The same with the drain tubes. This is for the oil drain tubes. It drains the oil back into the crankcase from the cylinder heads. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the wrenches out and stuff and take those cylinders off, put the old cylinders on, and then the engine will be ready to come off there. Now it's easier to do that with the engine attached to the airframe like this. It's nice and solid there. I could take it off and put it on an engine stand down here at work height, so I didn't have to climb up on that step, but I don't have an engine stand to put it on, so this is what we're going to do. I've got special wrenches to take to work on these cylinders. This one happens to be a 5/8, which is what's for the big nuts on there. And I think this one's a 9/16, which is for the smaller nuts. I've also got ones for 3/8 and 1/2 inch in there, but that's not what I need for this engine. Those work on a different engine. Well, I need to run over to the shop and grab my 1/2 inch drive ratchets. So the last cylinder that I took the cover off of was a number 2. Oh, it was already set up on top dead center, so I took that one off first. I pulled the cylinder off, pushed the pin out, took the piston out. The piston goes with that cylinder but the pin will be reused on the old cylinder when I put it back on. Got everything on that side, so I guess I'll go ahead and turn that around to where the number 4 cylinder is top dead center, and I'll take that cylinder off there too. So the piston pin doesn't want to come out of the piston. Normally, like the number 2 cylinder, I got it to slide out with just pushing out with my fingers, but the number 4 cylinder won't come out of there. I got a plastic hammer, rubber hammer on one end, plastic on the other, tapped on it a little bit. I could get it to just barely move, but not enough to get it to come out, and I still couldn't press it out with my fingers. They do make a press for pressing those pins out, but of course I don't have one of those. But what I'm going to go do is go get my heat gun out of the shop, and I'll heat up that piston. The piston is aluminum, so it should heat up faster than the pin, which is of course high strength steel. I'll heat the piston up, and hopefully that'll expand it enough that that pin will slide out of there. Alright, that worked. I heated that piston up. I got a leather glove on to hold it. I touched it with this hand just a little bit and burnt my finger. But anyway, I heated that piston up, and I still couldn't hardly get, I could just barely get the pin to move. So I took the plastic hammer and just tapped on it real gently until I got it to move in a little bit. And I got a wooden dowel and stuck on there and tapped that in and slid it out. So that worked pretty good. No damage. Now I got a burnt finger, burnt thumb. The piston pin for the number 1 cylinder slid right out of there, but the number 3 cylinder is tight in there. I'm going to go ahead and put some heat on that one too and see if I can get it to slide out of there. Okay, that worked. Now the trick is getting that piston to heat up enough to expand it without heating up that pin. If you let it sit too long, then the heat will soak into the pin and get it to expand too. But anyway, we got it out, and that's the way to do it without damaging anything. So I'll go turn that heat gun off, soak my finger in some ice, and go get those other cylinders out. Well, there's what this engine looks like without the cylinders on it. See, there's 2 crankcase halves. They bolt together right up here in the seam. And inside, and up above there is the camshaft, and then the crankshaft connecting rods. And here's the studs that hold the cylinders on. I just knocked this tube out of here. So this is part of the casting here, and then this is the oil sump that bolts on here. And then on the back is the accessory case that bolts on. We've got squirters in here for squirting oil into the cylinders when the engine's running. This is the tappets here. Well, there's a piston and a pin, and then these are the caps that go on the ends of the pins. There's the cylinder. So we don't just take a cylinder off and put another cylinder on. There's some things we have to do here. So on this, when we're replacing the cylinder, this fitting here, AN fitting, has to come off and go on the new cylinder. That's where the oil drains out of the rocker box here. And then this fitting has got to come out. In a new cylinder, there'll be a plug in there. You take that plug out and then put this fitting in there. And this is the primer sprayer. And then this one doesn't have it. This is a port down here, but this one has it. This is a adapter for the cylinder head temperature gauge. So these have got to come out. These have got to go in the new engine here, the primer injectors. These don't have to. A new engine's already complete with these on it. And the Superior cylinders are almost identical in every way. They're a little different casting and stuff on them, but for all intents and purposes they're the same. And you have the exhaust valve and the intake valve. And then there's pistons that go with the other cylinders, but we have to swap the pins out between them. I think I'll have to check and make sure, but I'm pretty sure we got to put the piston pins in the other pistons. This engine is never going to run the way it is. This will get sent back and they'll do a visual inspection on it to make sure everything is copacetic, and then it'll get torn down and all the parts sent out to various places to be refurbished, repaired as necessary. So anyway, I can go ahead and start putting that cylinder on there. I did spray that down with corrosion inhibitor here. So I'll probably should take something and wash that off before I put it together. But like I said, it's not like it's going to run the way it is, so I'm not too worried about it.